What would you call it when you have two powerful military factions currently involved in a military conflict? One side facing potential defeat, maybe not immediately, but in the face of it, threatens they will use nuclear weapons, starting with tactical nukes and then potentially more powerful weapons. What do you call it then when that faction mobilizes their entire nuclear arsenal, is now preparing a nuclear torpedo test for the first time, and a maintenance train and logistics train for their nuclear arsenal is seen on the move? I ask this because there are a lot of people who keep saying it's not going to happen. Russia will not use nukes. It would be crazy. It would be mutually assured destruction. And then I'm just sitting here like, yeah, okay, man. Maybe Putin doesn't care. Maybe he's like, I'm not going to lose. He has everything to lose. He is facing NATO on his border. So why wouldn't he say, you want to play games? Nukes it is. Because let me ask you this question. What is the difference between nuclear annihilation and conventional annihilation? And that's the question people need to be asking when they're wondering whether or not Vladimir Putin will use nuclear weapons. If the United States or NATO was faced with an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, or better yet, a nuclear torpedo crashing into the shores of one of its coastal cities, if it was facing that annihilation, yeah, maybe there would be retaliation. Maybe the U.S. would say, you want to wipe us out? We're going to wipe you out. But hold on there a minute. Who cares if it's a nuke? Vladimir Putin is facing crushing defeat in Ukraine. It's going to be extremely bad for them. The Nord Stream pipeline's been disabled. Their economy is in serious trouble. They need access to the Black Sea. They need the Crimean warm water port, and they need their pipelines delivering fuel into Europe. If they are facing that in any way, annihilation, if it's going to be a nuclear bomb or it's going to be a bunch of troops blowing stuff up, what's the difference? If Russia is facing annihilation, why would they not say, you started it, we nuke back? This is my point. People are saying, oh, Russia would engage in war, but they wouldn't use nukes because that would be mutually assured destruction. And I'm just like, it's a weapon. I don't care. It's not a special class. I'm not putting it on a pedestal. Vladimir Putin, facing defeat, will use nuclear weapons. The United States, facing defeat, likely would also use nuclear weapons. That's what they are for. Now, this is the big news today. NATO fears Russia is preparing to test Poseidon nuclear torpedo for the first time. Now, rumor has it the Poseidon nuclear torpedo, autonomous nuclear torpedo, has a blast yield of 100 megatons. If you're wondering what that would look like, let me just tell you. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I believe the blast yield for those bombs was 15 kilotons. And for those that know your math, a megaton is 1,024 kilotons. I believe that's translates. I don't know. I know kilobytes and megabytes, but it's about that. So it's about 1,000. If they really are preparing this torpedo, practicing, doing a test for it to make sure it works, it's not been deployed yet. Yeah, I think it's fair to say they're moving in that direction. You can call it saber rattling, but they don't have the weapons for no reason. Now, according to more official reports, the blast yield is probably just 2 megatons. Okay, 2 megatons. Well, it would wipe out Midtown to Battery Park in New York City if it were to make it straight through and slam into Battery Park. It's a nuclear torpedo, so I'm assuming it's going to stay underwater before it hits its target on the coastal city, in which case 2 megatons is not going to have the same impact as an airburst ICBM. But we'll talk the nitty gritty on nuclear weapons. Let me first give you the news, because not only do we have the test of Poseidon, we have this story. Russian nuclear military train is seen on the move in possible warning to the West that Putin is prepared to escalate his Ukraine war. From Yahoo, according to the newspaper, which newspaper? What is this? They say NATO newspaper? It just says, according to the newspaper, the key commands of the NATO member countries have received reports over the past few days regarding the movement of the nuclear submarine Belgorod, which can carry Poseidon torpedoes. It is considered the epitome of a new concept of warfare, La Repubblica writes. It said that the Belgorod is often mentioned in the context of the sabotage of the Nord Stream gas pipelines, as this is one of the activities for which it was designed. However, Western intelligence is convinced the submarine did not go beyond the White Sea in the north of Russia. In fact, it should next appear in the waters of the Arctic for a series of secret tests. I don't know. I mean, maybe. Why bother testing it? I guess you want to make sure it works if you're about to use it, right? Theoretically, the test could be the test could be the war. The war could be the test. But it makes me wonder about how they mentioned the Nord Stream pipeline, because there's a funny meme where it's like Vladimir Putin drives out, secretly into Polish territorial waters and then blows up his own pipeline. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it makes sense, does it? Sounds like the West disabled Russia's energy access into Europe, a portion of it. Now with Ukraine, of course, falling, this is what people need to realize. Russia transports gas into Europe primarily through Ukraine. And there's a bunch of others, but it's Ukraine is a big portion. And then you have the Nord Stream pipelines. Nord Stream disabled. Ukraine, the Gazprom pipelines under the control of NATO, especially if Russia loses this war. Bad news for Russia. An existential threat, as it were, because their economy can't be sustained unless they can ship in energy into Europe. This has long been the plan. If you've watched any of my videos talking about this, I've long talked about the U.S. and NATO trying to get cheaper gas into Europe. Surprise, surprise. These are the targets. The nuclear submarine BS-329 Belgorod was originally built as Project 949A, anti-submarine. However, it was modified as it was being built. The 184-meter submarine is now the longest submarine in existence today. Belgorod was officially transferred to service with the Russian Navy on July 8, 2022. The main difference between the Belgorod and all other nuclear submarines in the world is its potential to carry Poseidon nuclear torpedoes capable of traveling hundreds of miles underwater and causing nuclear tsunamis by exploding near a coast. They call it the tsunami bomb. It's worse than that. Apparently, the Poseidon torpedo has its own nuclear reactor, giving it unlimited range. They say at the same time, the U.S. created a network of satellites with infrared sensors precisely in order to record the launch of these Russian superweapons. Hans Christensen, director of the Nuclear Information Project at the Federation of American Scientists, said the torpedoes are still under development. According to him, the combat deployment of Poseidons is possible no earlier than the second half of this decade. And in an April report by the Congressional Research Service, it was said that they would enter service the Russian Navy no earlier than 2027, writes U.S. cable news channel CNN. But perhaps they're wrong. We don't know. I think it's silly to assume that the current state of nuclear weapons is based upon our knowledge of 1970s ICBMs. I assure you, the nuclear weapons held by the world powers today, you don't know about. Even if I don't even know if they're going to use nukes. This is the big thing. We're all sitting here being like, nuclear weapons. What if they use nuclear weapons? Bro, nuclear weapons were developed in like the late 30s, early 40s. The initial research paper on nuclear fission, 1938, the potential for a fission bomb, a nuclear bomb, was only shortly after that and developed in the 40s. Everybody was racing for it. It's crazy. The Nazis were working on rockets. Imagine if they were able to pull that off. But because they were anti-Semites, a good portion of the scientists who knew how to do it fled. We got them. We got the nukes. Isn't it funny how racism sabotaged or anti-Semitism sabotaged the Nazis? Talk about being stupid. But we talk about nuclear weapons, rockets, and all that. And I got to say, why would they not have something more powerful? I give you, albeit briefly, a mention of antimatter weaponry. The CERN Large Hadron Collider. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on any of this stuff, but our understanding is that they slam particles at high speeds, and they're doing research, they say, to try and see what it was like in the earliest stage of the universe, the Big Bang. What happens with these high levels of energy slamming into each other? Well, theoretically, they can create antimatter. Antimatter would be like an electron. You know what an electron is, but the inverse charge, a positron. This is antimatter. It's mirror imaged. And when it comes into contact, they negate each other and release 100% of their energy. A tremendous explosion. An antimatter bomb, a very small one. I can't talk about percentage blast yields, but I can just say this. Antimatter weaponry, if it was developed, a very, very tiny device could be as powerful as a massive nuclear bomb. I think it was something like, I don't know. I don't know any of the math, so I'm not going to try and speculate on how big an antimatter bomb could be, but it would be like a small portion of the size of a nuclear warhead with substantially more blast yield. Now, okay, we do have Russian nuclear military train on the move, and many people have said, what makes you think Russia's nuclear arsenal is capable? It's from the 70s. And I say, good point. Good point. Maybe it's in disarray. The U.S. nuclear arsenal is in disarray. I remember it was maybe like 8 years, the U.S. announced a new gravity bomb. Basically, I think it was a megaton bomb, and it was small. Gravity bombs work by you drop them, and then they, boom. ICBMs warheads tend to be air bursts. So air bursts go right over the target and then burst, and that gives a bigger spread. But this is all technology from the 70s and 80s, right? So today, the speculation is that this stuff's all in disrepair. The reports are that the nuclear arsenal is just rusted nuts and bolts and probably wouldn't even work. The fuel, how long has it been sitting around? Are these ICBMs ready to go? Don't know. But if that is true, and it may be, why would they not have, antimatter weaponry? We just don't know. And maybe even that. Why would we know about antimatter weaponry? I guess when the initial paper on nuclear fission was released in 1938, a lot of people said, hey, wait a minute, we could make bombs with that. Antimatter's been well known about for some time. Why have we not tried making bombs with that? Maybe we did. The Daily Mail reports a huge freight train moving specialist military equipment associated with a nuclear arms-wielding division of Russia's defense ministry has been spotted on the move, prompting fears of an escalation of Putin's war. A series of BPM-97 armored personnel carriers and other military vehicles were seen traveling through central Russia in a clip posted on Telegram messaging app by pro-Russian channel Rybar on Saturday. The APCs are thought to have been upgraded with more capable turrets, reinforced ambush and mine-proof armor, and an air purification system designed to allow its occupants to operate effectively in the face of sustained infantry attacks. Such advanced military hardware, the likes of which have been scarcely deployed on the front lines in Ukraine, reportedly belong to the 12th Main Directorate of the Russian MOD. This specialist division is dedicated to the storage, maintenance, and provision of weapons to the likes of the Strategic Rocket Forces, a Russian military branch that controls nuclear missiles and forms a key part of Putin's nuclear program. Military analyst Konrad Masika claimed the deployment of such units could signal a coming escalation in the conflict from the warmongering Russian president or constitute a precursor to large-scale nuclear drills. It comes as NATO warned member states that Russia's state-of-the-art Belgorod nuclear submarine has left its White Sea base, while key Putin ally Ramzan Kadyrov said Russia's military should use low-yield nuclear weapons to turn the tide in the war in Ukraine. Here we go, baby. People don't get it. They don't get it. It's just crazy to me. I think Putin will use nuclear weapons if he has no choice. And I think we're getting dangerously close to the possibility that he will feel that way. I don't know if it will happen. Maybe he'll just say, I don't want this. I just don't see de-escalation. But here's what you need to understand. We are not talking about Vladimir Putin being like, they've taken the Eastern Front. Okay, blow up New York. That's ridiculous. The Poseidon missile, tsunami bomb, crazy. He'd only use it as a last resort. But what about tactical nuclear weapons? Forbes writes, here's what would happen if Putin ordered a nuclear strike. They say, tactical nuclear weapons are much smaller than the strategic long-range warheads designed to destroy cities. But power is relative. The largest tactical weapons can be as big as 100 kilotons. 1 kiloton is 1,000 tons of TNT. The bomb the U.S. dropped in Hiroshima was 15 kilotons. And Dr. Rod Thornton, a security expert at King's College London, told Forbes they can still be devastating. I'm pretty sure a 100 kiloton bomb, which is like 7 times more powerful, about 7 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima, would be devastating. And that's what I've said. 100 kiloton tactical artillery, nuclear artillery fired on Kiev to shut them down. And the reason I say Kiev, it's the capital. It's where they're safe. It's where they're filming their Propo pieces. So he fires a 100 kiloton bomb, wiping out Kiev, hoping that shocks the entirety of Ukraine into backing down. Because that would kill, I suppose in the city center, 100,000 people would be dead instantly. It's nightmarish to think about. But it depends on what Putin thinks is going to happen. Maybe he doesn't even use 100 kilotons. Maybe he uses 10 kilotons. Maybe he uses 15. We saw what happened with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They say Putin would be highly unlikely to target a Ukrainian city in an initial strike. It would possibly avoid casualties altogether. I agree with that. He may go for military or strategic locations. The nuclear attack would mostly be a symbolic signaling device. Yeah, a shot across the bow, letting them know before it's too late, you have an option to back down. But let's talk about what happens. And we will use our source over at Nuke Map. So you can't really, well, you know what? We can just enter a yield, and we're going to enter a yield in kilotons of 2,000. Let's talk Poseidon. Or you know what? No. Let's talk 100 kilotons over New York. Detonate. 100 kilotons landing in the financial district of New York. That's the radius you would see. And it's hard to know exactly what the nuclear radiation radius is going to be of each individual weapon. We don't know for sure. Maybe they've got nuclear artillery in here somewhere. Let's see. We've got, let's see, W-76, common U.S.-UK 100 kiloton bomb. We'll use that one. Detonate over New York. Wow. That's crazy. We can see the light blast damage of a 100 kiloton bomb on New York would reach past Hoboken. The light blast range would go all the way to where is that? I don't even know what area that is. It's going to just go past all of the Jersey to, what river do we have here? I don't know. Is that, I don't know what river that is. It's going to go past Bushwick, Bed-Stuy. It won't quite make it down to, it'll hit Bay Ridge. Wow, that's crazy. And that's if it were to slam into the financial district. I think, however, they'd probably target Midtown to maximize their damage to Manhattan, if that were the case. Now, I don't know if they're actually going to use, they're not going to use tactical nukes on Manhattan. This is just to show you what it would look like if it was over New York City. But we'll do this. Let's zoom out. Let's fly on over. Actually, let's just do this. Let's just do Kiev. I don't know if it's spelled that way. There you go. We've done this one before. A 100 kiloton tactical bomb. It's basically wiping out the entirety of the city. It's probably going to kill, do they say how many people die in this thing? It's going to kill 100,000 people. Why would they do this? Because they want to send fear into the hearts of NATO, into the Ukrainians who are fighting the war. Now, look how big this country is. That's a small bomb, all right, relatively. You've got Crimea down here. Look how tiny that looks when you zoom out. Shock and awe. Terrify people. Make them think that they won't survive. Just start slamming into all of the regions that he needs to. It'll start with a symbolic strike, a shot across the bow, then military targets, and then a key city like Kiev. Now, this is a 100 kiloton bomb. Let's talk about if they were to use something like Poseidon, which is estimated. Let's do this. Poseidon is estimated to be 2 megatons. That's the official report. Although some people have, I think the Russian media was saying like 100 megatons, but that sounds ridiculous. But let's just say, okay. Here's the crazy thing. We'll detonate over New York City. Let's see what happens. Did it put me back in Kiev? Okay, we got New York City. Let's go. Come on. It's not working. All right. You're not going to give us New York? We'll go. Anyway, the issue with the Poseidon is that it's a tsunami bomb. It's underwater. The question is, will it actually be able to make it to New York? You know what? Honestly, I don't actually know. You take a look at a lot of the U.S.'s coastal cities. It ain't going to make it into Philadelphia. Okay. I guess maybe New Brunswick, but are we really going to scream and cry about New Brunswick getting hit? New York. It could. It would probably have to go down to Long Beach or Coney Island or something. I have to imagine there's some kind of alert system or defense, but maybe there isn't. Let's say that it comes up straight through here and goes right past, the Verrazano, and then turns and slams into Battery Park. That's a lot of damage. I don't know what a tsunami bomb there would do. I imagine that it's going to hit all of these surrounding areas, and so detonating it right there actually would be devastating to New York, Staten Island, Bayonne, would cause massive damage to the Newark airport, would probably cause residual damage to JFK. And I have to wonder if they'd be better off detonating lower to try and cause damage to JFK, or more than one. That's a question I have. I don't know. People say you got to be worried about Poseidon because it's underwater. Hard to detect, hard to stop. ICBMs, they go through the air. We can see them. We have satellites. And we have systems. I don't know if the Iron Dome or THAAD-like systems. I bet we have surface-to-air missiles. If Israel's got Iron Dome, I'm sure we have strategic defense. We try and blow them up in midair. What if it's underwater? That's probably why they developed the underwater missiles in the first place. Would they come for the U.S. and go for New York? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe. It's possible. I mean, look, Vladimir Putin is looking at NATO on its doorstep, and it might be thinking this is the U.S. coming to our border and threatening us with annihilation. So they would say, then we bring it to your doorstep. And you know what? It's possible. Russia, this is what you got to understand, man. Maybe they wouldn't go for New York or D.C. Obvious targets, right? D.C. is probably well fortified with anti-nuke missile systems or something. Who would they go for? Wilkes-Barre? Yeah. Allentown? No, I think Scranton would be a good target. Because people in Scranton think they're safe. That's why. They talked about this after 9/11, saying that the prime targets for terrorists will be small towns, not big cities. You'd think it's going to be the big cities because they want to cause economic damage. But how do you cause economic damage? Lancaster, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Binghamton, Ithaca. You go for cities that are big enough to cause serious damage, but are small enough that people in small town America are terrified they won't be safe. That will cause more economic damage. If a nuke hits D.C., you got economic damage nationwide. But D.C.'s the obvious target. People move out to the middle of nowhere thinking they're safe. You know, we are out in the Harper's Ferry area near Charlestown. And so if a bomb were to go off, we'd be mostly fine. So maybe they hit Charlestown instead, causing massive damage to the surrounding areas. Because guess what? The wealthy lawyers and elites, they don't live in D.C. They live outside of D.C., Arlington, Silver Spring, Annapolis, and stretching out. They use the Charlestown area, the Harpers Ferry area, Jefferson County as like a corporate getaway. So if Putin was actually going to target the area, he'd probably hit, let's see, Germantown, maybe Leesburg. You hit Leesburg and you get all of the areas surrounding where a lot of these wealthy D.C. people will live. Make them feel unsafe. That's people don't realize this. They don't think about the logic of what a nuclear strike would be like. Hit Martinsburg, small West Virginian town. And you're going to hit Jefferson County. You're going to get parts of Frederick, where, again, a lot of these D.C. people will live. Shepherdstown, a college town. You hit that, and you get this massive radius where you can say, as Vladimir Putin could say, no one is safe. Now, what that would do, these small towns, all of a sudden they're fleeing, they're panicking, and no one feels like there's anywhere to go to be safe. What do? You hit a big city. People in small towns say, wow. You hit a small town. People in every city say, hide in the basement. That's the scary reality of nuclear war. I hope it doesn't come to that, obviously. I hope that this finds some resolution, but we're only seeing escalation, especially now with the deployment of the Poseidon for nuclear testing. Maybe we're a few years away. Man, I don't know. But I think it's possible that Vladimir Putin is just going to say, I'm not going to lose. I'll leave it there. The next segment is coming up on this channel at 1 p.m. Thanks for hanging out. Become a member at timcast.com. Follow at TimcastNews on Twitter if you don't already. And we'll see you all next time.